Hi, everybody. Uh, Enough faith for today with Georgia. We're in the book Do the New You. I'm going to hop right in. I think we're on day 10. I apologize. I forgot to mark where I left off yesterday, so I'm just going to start at the top of page 37. You're definitely in chapter 3 or something. I don't know. Do you ever argue with your limitations so effectively that you end up keeping them? Do you ever defend your limits? Definition of who you are to a God. Do you ever defend your limits? Definition of who you are to a God who has known you longer than you have and who sees you with more faith and more grace than you do. Maybe you have a great business idea, but you won't even take the first step to see if it's viable because you've already talked yourself out of it. It'll probably fail. I'm not smart enough. This is a stupid idea. People are just going to laugh. You're so scared that you won't be able to do it that you write yourself off before you even try. I think we're all guilty of this in some area. I've written myself off more times than I care to admit, and maybe you have too. Maybe you dismiss a character issue by saying, "That's just my personality." You excuse a parenting fail by saying, "I didn't have a good example of that growing up." You excuse a bad decision at work by saying, "I'm too busy, too overwhelmed, too stressed, too stupid. So that's just the best I can do." God sends you signs and signals that there is more in you. He shows you things you can do and places He wants to take you. But if you respond with, "I could never do that, I'll never be that," if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. You get to live with them. In Ephesians 4, just before Paul says to put off the old self, he wrote that whoever is not the way of life you learned, however, that however is not the way of life you learned when you heard about Christ and were taught in Him in accordance with the truth that is in Jesus. That the way of life Paul described was one of impurity, indulgence, loss of sensitivity, ignorance, and hardness of heart. That was what his readers had always known and heard. I can imagine them saying, "But Paul, that's the way my dad did it. That's the way my mom did it. That's the way I've always heard. That's what I've always thought. That's what so and so said. That's just how we do it. That's just how I am. I'm just doing me." Paul confronts their loyalty to the past ways of thinking by saying, "Guys, you were taught wrong. That might be who you thought you were, but it's just the layer of a lifestyle that that have accumulated from the things you've learned. There's a new you created in God because the foundation of the world. You need to relearn how to do you. The old way of living in the patterns and learned behaviors of the past. It takes intentionality. I'm having a hard time today. It takes intentionally and intentional. It takes commitment to unlearn the old ways you were taught and learn a new way. That means you have to pay attention to what you're saying about yourself and why you assume it's true. If you tell yourself they put me in a bad mood, then you get to keep your bad mood. If you say I have a short temper, that's who I am, then you get to keep getting angry. But if you're burning through perfectly good relationships and hurting people you love because you get moody or fly off the handle too quickly, why defend that? Why be loyal to that version of you? I like that. That's a good question. Or maybe you never learned to apologize. It's always felt like weakness. It felt like humiliation. But now you're learning that you don't have to defend yourself all the time. You can trust God to be the one who justifies you, the one who gives you value and security. That's not what you were taught, though. That's not what you saw in the home you grew up in. So at first it feels unnatural to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I'll do better. When you are being called by God to change, it can feel like a betrayal of what you've always been. And that brings up all kinds of emotions. Oh no, if I stop being controlling, how am I going to deal with stress? If I stop being manipulative, things will fall apart. I won't get what I want. I won't get what I need. People are going to take advantage of me. But those arguments don't protect you. They limit you. They feel comfortable because they're familiar, but they're not your friends. They're not moving you forward, and they don't deserve your loyalty. God is teaching you a new way of life, and that means you can't be loyal to your limitations. You can't take a case for the things in you that are not like Christ. I'm not saying to ignore your limitations, but a lot of us go too far beyond acknowledging our limitations. We actually become advocates for them. When the devil tells you that you're worthless, do you start collecting evidence to help him? Do you say, that's right, I am worthless, and then list the evidence from your past that backs up that accusation? Do you go out and do things that make you feel even more worthless? Do you? When you feel too old to try something new, do you agree with that feeling? I'm too old to do this or to learn that. It's too late. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. If you argue for your limitations, you can feel old at age 40. I met a 23-year-old the other day who told me, man, I'm getting old. Really, bro? At 20? Just wait. You have no idea. At least that's what one of my mentors who just turned 70 tells me. I think we need to add another sentence to that motivational phrase. If you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. But if you agree with God about your potential, you get to grow into it. I like that. If you agree with God about your potential, you get to grow into it. What potential? The potential God sees in you. The doors He is opening for you. The gifts and callings He is drawing are of you. If the gifts and callings He is drawing are of you. If God says you can change, you can change. If He says you can help somebody, you can help somebody. If He says He's putting something in you, then He can call it out of you. Then He can call it out of you. Beautiful. All right, I'm going to stop there just because I like to keep these videos shorter. I had a rough go today. It took me a while to get in the groove. But either way, God bless y'all. American Discovery Trail Day of Prayer. Google it. I'm sure you'll find something. I made enough videos about it. 9 million. October 18th, 2026. Get to the American Discovery Trail. 9 million people. God bless. Bye.